The rain came down in silver sheets across the empty road. The headlights of Daniel's old hover truck cut through the mist, flickering against the dark forest beyond. He was late again. His daughter Lily's 10th birthday dinner was supposed to start an hour ago. A single father for almost 4 years, Daniel had learned that time didn't move kindly for those who tried to do everything alone. His job as an off-world engineer for the Mars orbital trade routes barely paid enough, and Earth's weather was becoming more unstable by the year. But Lily never complained. She waited by the window each night, reading her little picture books, her birthday cake sitting cold on the table until he came home. As he drove, Daniel replayed the promise he'd made to himself. No work, no distractions. Tonight is for her. Then a flash of blue light streaked across the sky. It wasn't lightning. It was something brighter, and it crashed into the woods ahead with a tremor that shook the road. "Great," Daniel muttered, slowing down. The forest was federal property, closed to the public. But the smoke rising between the trees didn't look like any meteor he'd ever seen. He parked on the shoulder. "Just a quick look," he whispered. He didn't know why, but something in his chest, the same instinct that once made him rush into a fire to pull out a stranger, wouldn't let him drive away. Grabbing a flashlight and his old engineering toolkit, Daniel stepped into the rain-soaked woods. The crash and the stranger. The crash site was eerily quiet. Trees were scorched in a perfect circle, and in the center was a sleek, half-buried pod, metallic, shimmering with symbols he didn't recognize. It hissed softly like a living thing. "Is someone inside?" he called out. The pod's surface shifted, plates retracting. A small form tumbled out, a woman no older than him, but her skin was faintly luminescent. Her hair shimmered like molten silver, and her eyes glowed softly blue. She was breathing but weak. Hey, stay with me." Daniel knelt, wrapping his jacket around her. She murmured something, the words musical, alien, and then her hand clutched his wrist with surprising strength. The touch sent a pulse of warmth through his skin, like static that carried emotion instead of pain. Fear. Confusion. Desperation. "Okay," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "You're safe. I'll help you." He half carried her back to his truck, ignoring the voice in his head warning him how stupid this was. Harboring a non-registered alien on Earth could get him detained. But the rain was freezing, and her breathing was shallow. Back at the cabin, Lily was sitting by the fire, hugging her stuffed bear. When Daniel entered with the strange woman in his arms, Lily's eyes widened. "Daddy, who is that?" Daniel hesitated. "Someone who needs help." He laid the alien woman on the couch and started scanning her with his repair drone. It beeped uncertainly. The readings were unlike anything in its database. The woman stirred, her voice trembling. "Please, my child." Her eyes darted around the room, panic setting in. Daniel knelt beside her. "You have a child." She nodded weakly. "The crash." Escape pod, another smaller one. Near water. Before he could stop her, she tried to rise but collapsed again. Daniel caught her. "You're in no condition to move." He turned to Lily. "Sweetheart, stay here. Don't open the door for anyone, okay?" Lily's eyes were wide but trusting. "Be careful, Daddy." Daniel grabbed his flashlight and ran back into the storm. A search. He followed the direction she had pointed, toward the river that cut through the forest. The mud sucked at his boots, and branches whipped at his face. Then he saw it, a second pod, smaller, cracked open. Inside, a tiny shape stirred. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. It was a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old by human standards, but with the same silver hair and blue eyes. The boy was crying softly, calling out in that strange language. "It's okay," Daniel whispered, gently lifting the child into his arms. The boy clung to him instantly, small hands gripping his jacket. Back at the cabin, the woman gasped when she saw her son. Tears welled in her luminous eyes as she reached for him. Daniel set the boy down beside her. "He's fine. Just scared." The woman pressed her forehead to her child's, whispering words Daniel didn't understand. The glow in her skin softened, and the air seemed to hum. When she looked at Daniel again, her voice was quiet. "You saved us." He shook his head. "Anyone would've." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "No. Many would have walked away." Her words hung in the air like something ancient and true. Understanding the stranger. Over the next few days, Daniel kept the two hidden in his cabin. The woman's wounds healed faster than humanly possible, and soon she could walk again, though she moved carefully, like every motion carried pain from memories he couldn't see. Her name, as he learned from her halting English, was Sarai, and her son was Kale. They were from a distant colony in the Orion cluster, refugees from a destroyed world, hunted by a faction called the Tazrith Dominion. "You're telling me they followed you here?" Daniel asked one night as he repaired her pod in the shed. Sarai nodded, her eyes filled with quiet sorrow. "We fled across 3 systems. My mate stayed behind to fight. He told me to run with Kale. We never meant to crash here." Daniel looked at the damaged engines. "You're lucky to be alive." She gave a faint smile. Luck or mercy? He didn't know what to say. So he worked. He replaced torn conduits, rewired systems, and improvised new energy cells from scrap parts. Lily helped, bringing tools and snacks. Kale followed her around curiously, fascinated by the drawings she made of him. By the end of the week, the cabin felt alive again. Laughter, warmth, the sound of small feet running on wood floors. Lily had a playmate for the first time in years. And Daniel found himself smiling again, something he hadn't done since his wife's accident. But something else was happening too. Sarai would often watch him from the corner of her eye. Not with suspicion, but with something softer, deeper. Gratitude that carried the weight of someone who had lost everything and found something human again. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Sarai spoke quietly. "On my world, kindness is a sacred act. It is rare among those who have known pain." Daniel looked into the flames. "Pain teaches us too. Sometimes. It makes you want to make sure no one else feels it." She smiled faintly. "That is why you helped me." He chuckled. "Maybe." Sarai turned to look at him fully, her blue eyes reflecting the firelight. "You are alone." Daniel nodded slowly. "Lily's mom died in a shuttle malfunction. I promised her I'd raise Lily to believe in good things, even when the world doesn't seem so good." Sarai looked at Lily, who was asleep on the couch beside Kale. Her expression softened. "You have kept your promise." Rising conflict. The hunters arrive. The peace didn't last. That night, Daniel's repair drone detected movement in the upper atmosphere. 3 unidentified ships entering low orbit, cloaked but not silent. Sarai stiffened as soon as he told her. "They found me." "How?" he asked. "The Dominion tracks energy signatures from our vessels. Even damaged, the beacon may have flared when you powered it." Daniel's mind raced. "Then we need to move." She shook her head. "There's nowhere on this world they will not find. They have hounds, bio-trackers tuned to my DNA." Daniel looked at the kids asleep by the fire and clenched his fists. "Then we make a stand." Sarai blinked. "You would fight them. For us." I've already chosen kindness once, he said. Guess I'll have to choose it again. The defense. Daniel had worked with defense tech during his engineering days, and his cabin wasn't as unprotected as it looked. Old security drones, EMP traps, and pulse turrets he'd salvaged from military scrapyards surrounded the property. He powered them all that night. When the alien ships descended, the forest erupted in light. Dark figures poured from the trees, Dominion soldiers in black exo-armor. Their translator devices hissed, "Surrender the fugitives, human. You will not be harmed." Daniel stood in front of the cabin with his pulse rifle. "That's funny," he said. "I don't believe you." The first wave came fast. Plasma bolts seared the ground, but Daniel's traps activated, bursts of electromagnetic light frying half their weapons. Sarai joined him, her own gauntlet weapon glowing with blue energy. Together they fought back-to-back, human and alien. "On my world," she shouted between blasts, "defenders of the weak are called Kareth." He grinned through the chaos. "Sounds better than single dad with a bad aim." Despite the humor, Daniel fought with precision, disabling more than he killed. When one soldier fell near him, Daniel saw his face, young, terrified. Not so different from the conscripts he'd once worked beside. Finally, the lead ship fired a beam that ripped through the treeline. Sarai pushed Daniel down, taking the blast across her shoulder. The smell of burnt ozone filled the air. "No!" Daniel yelled, grabbing her. She was bleeding, silver light seeping from the wound. "Go," she whispered. "Take the children. Please." But Daniel shook his head. "We finish this together." He sprinted toward his shed, activating his old prototype, a heavy-duty gravity pulse emitter meant for mining. It wasn't a weapon, but it could knock out a ship's stabilizers. "Sarai, cover me." She nodded weakly, firing into the sky as Daniel calibrated the emitter. The Dominion ship loomed above, charging its cannons. Daniel aimed, slammed the trigger. A blinding flash erupted. The ship trembled, lost power, and crashed into the mountains beyond. The battle was over, ending the promise of tomorrow. By morning, the Dominion forces were gone. The authorities would probably find the wreckage, but Daniel knew Sarai and Kale couldn't stay. "I can finish the repairs," he said quietly as they stood beside the now-repaired pod. "You'll have enough power to reach orbit and jump out of the system." Sarai placed a hand on his chest. "You risked everything for us. I have no words that can hold such meaning." Daniel smiled faintly. "Just stay alive. That'll be enough." Sarai hesitated, then leaned in, her forehead touching his. It wasn't a kiss, but something older, sacred. A bond of trust. "You have changed how I see your kind," she whispered. "And perhaps how I see myself." Kale hugged Lily tightly before climbing into the pod. Lily tried not to cry, but tears fell anyway. "Will I ever see you again?" Sarai looked back at Daniel. "Perhaps when the stars are kinder." The pod lifted, blue light rippling across the clearing. As it rose into the sky, Daniel stood with his daughter, watching it vanish into the dawn. Lily slipped her hand into his. "Daddy." "Yeah. Do you think she'll remember us?" He smiled. "I think she already does." And somewhere beyond the clouds, a small silver ship carried two refugees, a mother and her son, who now knew that even among the vast cruelty of the stars, kindness could still be the strongest force in the universe.